Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Motorsport Minute. Today we are joined with famous Team Azzkikr driver Zach Ponzer. He has been nationally known, driving all over the place. Get to hear a little bit more of the why and how he does it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We are the best motorsports podcast out there right now, as well as I'm aware of. All right, let's hop in. So what got you into derbying?
It started, a long time ago. My uncles used to build cars out of my mom and dad's farm there when I was a little kid. I was just super intrigued by it. Pretty much just gutting the cars out, tearing them all apart. And then it's still to this day, just like taking an old beat up car sitting out in the tree rows with weeds growing all over it and pulling it into the shop and making it run and move again and painting it all up, making them look sharp. And it just the whole process of it was just always intriguing. You know, when I was a little kid, I'm talking like 6, 7 years old. I used to sneak out of the house and run out to the barn where my uncles built cars and just help them out for a little bit and watch them, pull an engine out, an old rusty hunk of junk, and then put one in that runs, and just intrigued by just the mechanics behind it and how they could do that. Take an old running vehicle that was just rusted up and, give it one last ride. And then on top of that, go out there and smash it up for as long as they do. You take a normal car that it goes down the road and it breaks down and doesn't work, and we're taking these things and smashing them into each other time after time after time, and they keep moving. They're bellied out, they're tipped up, they're just, wheels are falling off, but it's just the drive, it's still going. Like, that just intrigues me. Still to this day it does. It's just awesome. I love it.
Yeah, the sport's evolved immensely since, well, probably the times you're talking to now, but I don't know, sometimes it's nice to go back and watch the old stuff, kind of how they did it in the simplistic way. They did it with what they had, not much, and they still probably made it as far as some of these cars do now, as far as running time wise. So it's
every once in a while we'll find an old farmyard that's got some old derby cars that were around, in the 80s, and you look them over, and some of them guys back then, though, they were crafty. Like, they were making stuff work and laying stuff in door seams that it's like, what in the heck? How did these pass old school tech like that? When I first started driving, I remember like cages weren't even a thing back then. The very first time we seen a sort of cage at all, I was at the local show here in Animus. It was Shay and Duke brought down some cars, and they had one single dash bar and one single door bar, no halo, no gas tank protector, none of that stuff. And like, the judges went ballistic. They were just sitting there yelling at them like, these cars will never bend. This is insane. You can't do that.
Right.
And it's like, wow, nowadays, if you showed up with something like that, you wouldn't get to run based off of safety. They just wouldn't let you. It's evolved, like you said, so much as far as the builds, the equipment, just everything that goes with it.
Yeah, that's so true. When I started, having a rear seat bar, like, you had something. And then the guys that didn't have it, if you had means to put in like well pipe as like a rear seat bar, you had something.
And we did. I remember when our first couple of cages, if you want to call it that, it was well pipe welded to some railroad plates, and we literally had it in with like 2 3/8 bolts on each side. Is what we just drilled into the inner door skin, and that was our cage. And like you said, when we showed up, we were like professionals. Like, dang, we got something here. That's just crazy.
Yeah, no, I remember even prior to me getting into the sport, watching you run. Obviously with Shay and Duke there for quite some time, and then, well, obviously I've seen you run down at Blizzard Bash and, well, all over the countryside, more or less, for years already. Always a joy to watch. You've always been a pretty good wheelman. So where did the skills come? Just over time, living life?
A lot of seat time, but basically, when I was young, I like any young kid, I didn't have a whole lot of money. Like, most of my parts came from Christmas presents and birthday presents, and it got to a point where it's like, I have to finish in the money or I won't be able to afford gas to go to the next show. So it was like, you got to figure it out and make the car last. I've never been the best builder, I guess. Like, my cars still, they're pretty shocked after the show. They're not hard by any means, but just at a young age, it's like, you got to figure out how to get in the money so you got enough to go run next weekend. So that's kind of where my mentality was, and just watching a lot of watching old tape too. You just watch old videos, just like back when I was in sports and in football. Like, you watch it, you see what you did wrong, what you should have did here and didn't do there, and you just keep that in your head. So then you're on the track, you get into a situation. It's like, well, this is what got me out last time. So you just kind of stick with that, and that it just progresses from that and just kind of comes natural now, where you just keep yourself out of bad situations and try and, be defensive and offensive driving at the same time, it seems like.
Right. What kind of cars did you start running when you first started out?
That's the wild part, is I was in new style Fords back then. Back then, that's when Fords were junk and nobody ran them. I was actually getting cars for free. Like, the first car I ever ran full size was a 79 Crown Vic. And I got that from free from Derby guys around here that Fords were garbage. Nobody wanted them, especially the new iron. Nobody knew nothing about them. So I was getting free hand-me-down cars from people because that's all I could afford. And, looking back, God, some of the cars that we passed up on, I remember specifically there was a 74 Pontiac wagon, so a round back, running 455 in it. The guy wanted $350 for it. And I'm just like, no way, I can't afford that. Like, passed up on it, and a lot of sedans, 74 Impalas that $150 that it's like, nope, that's out of my price range. I can't afford it. But I'll buy that 67 Ford sitting right next to it for $25 and try and run that, We did a lot of that, unfortunately, and went back to them honey holes, and they're all gone, of course. But it's there too, how the sport's progressed. Who would have thought that a guy would be paying $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for a car to go out and smash it?
Oof, yeah. Did you run anything other than full size? I guess I should ask that.
The very first car I ever ran in my life was actually at the Mandan Speedway. It was like a mid '80s Oldsmobile Calais is what it was. So I ran Herbie Derby, and we set it up. We built it for a different guy, actually. And me and my cousin built it. And when we got to the show, because it was actually Jamie Scott was who it was. He unfortunately passed away here a couple years ago, but that's actually why I run the number I do with 31. We built it, he painted it all up, and he put his number on it, so the number 31. And we got to the show, and he's like, you know what, you built this car, and I was 12 years old when I ran my first show.
Wow.
He goes, you built this, you can drive it. We actually had to sign up under my cousin's name because I wasn't legal to do it. So we signed up under his name. I went out there and ran, and I lucked out and won it. And ever since then, it's like, well, that number must be pretty lucky. So I stuck with that, and been running it ever since. And Mandan was, my first show, and I've ran there a bunch of times. It's always been one of my favorite tracks to run. But no, used to run a lot of Pinto wagons back in the day, had a few Fairmonts that we built. And that was, that was before the Aluminas and everything became so wicked and crazy tough. But we could build a Pinto, and I'd load it up on the trailer. We'd leave it loaded up pretty much all summer. And like when Mikey used to run with me, we would just kind of like, hey, let's go to the whatever Leeds Derby. It's like, do they have a Herbie Derby? Yep, I think so. It's like, okay, we'll bring it with. And we'd bring it with, and go out there, run. We had a pretty good setup back then, so we won a lot of shows doing that. And $300-400 here and there. We just go to derbies all summer and hit them up. If we weren't running full size, we'd run that compact stuff, and it worked for a long time.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of, we evolved like everything. They weren't paying as much as the full size, and we just kind of put a lot more time and effort into the full size, which we didn't have that time then for the compact. So basically just sold out. That was a few years ago. I sold all my compact stuff there.
So your brother, he ran Pintos and stuff for a while.
Yeah, that's who bought it all. Yeah, he bought my motors, rear ends, all, and I had, gosh, I bet I sold him about a dozen Pinto wagons too, which them aren't a very common car, but I gobbled up as many as I could. So he's still sitting on. I bet he's got 8 or 9 back there that if he gets a wild hair up his butt to run here and there, but then it's like he works on it for about 3 hours and he realizes that that's not fun. Driving's the fun part, so he kind of steers away from it. But he's still got all the stuff out there, and I'm sure if he watches this, then he'll be all fired up to build a car or two. And so we'll see if he sticks with it this time.
It's been a long time since I've seen him in a car. A long time.
Yeah.
But I've seen him.
It's like everything,
sure,
life gets in the way.
Yeah.
That's usually where he ends up running. Yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah, he's just like anyone else, though. It's fun to do when you're kind of single or just got a girlfriend, but then you get a real job and have a couple kids. Well, that takes up a lot of your free time. So he's doing his motocross racing and everything too. So that's kind of impedes on building cars.
Yeah, it makes it a lot harder. I don't think people understand. Probably a lot of people still think derbying is just kind of a redneck thing. But
Yeah, for sure.
realistically, there's a lot of ingenuity, engineering, a lot of money on the line. I mean,
Yep.
top quality parts. You know, I don't think people quite realize how much actually does go into it these days. And it's almost a second full-time job if you want to be competitive.
Oh, for sure. Between, like you said, the time invested, the money invested, and just that's the engineering that we have into it and the professionalism that a lot of drivers do carry. You know, the guys that like Blizzard Bash, the prime example, any big show really, guys pour their heart and soul into them cars, and and every single person out there's got a chance to win, it seems like. There's no slouches. Like when I first started derby, and I mean, you go to a derby around here, there's 45 cars, and I mean, there's like 3 or 4 of them that are going to win just because they outstand the rest. And I remember back in the day too running. It's like, gosh, how do these guys? How do they do it? How are their cars so strong? And it's like because they're putting good bumpers on, because their motor doesn't quit running, because their axles don't break off in one hit. Like that's how they run consistent and win all the time, because they invest the time and the money. Where we were running that one year, I ran 16 shows with 16 different cars. And I made the feature twice and I placed once. And it's basically because we were building the cars in like 2 or 3 days. We didn't put the time and money into one car and build a good solid car and bumper swap and motor swap and all this stuff. And that's it was actually, I think that was 2003 or 4. It was Husker Havoc 2 was the first big show I ever went down to with Shay and Duke. And I got down there and it was just like there had been 100 cars there, and you look at the professionalism behind it, and every single car was just, they had headers going out the roof. They had just wicked engines. They had new tires all the way around. They were set up they were derby cars. They weren't just cars that were getting derbied. Like these were purpose-built cars. And ever since then, it's like, that's the level I need to get on. So that following winter, when I came back, I ran 4 or 5 cars after that. And I made the feature with all 5 of them. And I think I took 3 first places home in 2 seconds. And it's just like, I invested the time and the money and focused on a couple cars rather than a bunch of cars, and ran good, and that's kind of right from there on. It's like, this is where I want to be, and a lot of sacrifices along the ways. When I was young, I mean, I used to hunt and fish. I used to go out boating all the time. I had 4-wheelers, I had motorcycles, and we just they got in the way, instead of riding dirt bike, I worked on cars. Instead of going to the lake, I worked on cars. Instead of, all that stuff, I worked on cars. And I mean, it paid off. The time invested paid off. I mean, I enjoy what we're doing, building cars and running consistently. And that's where I'm at, I guess. Everyone's got kind of their own fun. I always say you got to waste your money on something. Might as well be something you're good at. So that's what we've been sticking to.
It's so true, though. I don't know how many times when I was younger, friends would ask to go to the lake or whatever it may be, and I was at home working on cars.
Exactly. Yep.
And it's the same thing. My first maybe 3 or 4 full-size cars were just like cars I bought that were running and driving, got them going type deal. Just did the old tricks, tie the choke back.
Yeah.
I started watching more and more people, builds kind of progressed, and that was maybe 10 or I don't know, one of the maybe 2nd year or 3rd year Blizzard Bash when I first went down just to watch. And it's like, kind of the same mentality. Like, this is exactly where I want my build to be. And I mean, everything progressed from there. It's kind of winner's mentality.
It is. It really is. And just, they say too, success breeds success. So when you go to a big show like that, you see it and just see how successful people are. Like that pushes you to be a better builder and a better driver, and just being on that venue or in that atmosphere of what it is. It's like you get pumped for it. And I mean, you get excited to build cars again. That sometimes, throughout the year, you like, I get burnt out a little bit. It's like, gosh, I really don't want to go out in the shop and work on cars, but I'll sit and watch YouTube videos, and it gets you hyped up. And it's like, damn, I want to be out in the shop. Like, let's get there again. Let's get to building. Let's figure this out. So
you've pretty much ran new style since I can ever remember. I mean, you haven't ran a whole lot. I mean, you've ran old iron, but it's been predominant new style, right? Fords?
Pretty much, yeah. Really, I ran a couple. It was pretty funny. I picked up a 74 or 5 2-door Chevy that was back in my early days, had an inline 6-cylinder in it. And I ran that and I was like, oh man, like I got one of the best cars out there, and ran it and got my butt kicked because the damn thing, that 6-cylinder wouldn't even pull the car around the track hardly. So I'm kind of like, nope, new styles are junk, or old styles are junk. And I really couldn't afford them anyway, even the $100 bill that they wanted for them back then. But I've always been super comfortable in the new style Fords. They're so quick and agile, and I like wheeling rather than, the old iron can definitely take a beating, but I'd rather be out there sticking and gunning and getting after it. But whenever we go out to like a more stock show, like when we were running Utah pretty often, I was always taking old iron out there. It just seemed like with them light of build rules, you needed the older cars just held up a little bit better. The track was a little bit different out there, so it kind of bogged everything down. It seemed like where the Fords, I don't think would have been as quick as they normally are on a harder clay track. But that's what I ran last weekend, was an old iron, and that was actually built for that Wasatch 50,000 a win show, and then it got canceled by COVID, and then just some scheduling conflicts got in the way, and I was sitting on it, and it's like I even looked at that from 2 years ago. It's like, God, this build is so outdated already. Just the way we did the bumper brackets, mounting the back bumper, just the cage, like a lot of the stuff was like, gosh, where are we going to take this thing to? Because it's the rules are just so outdated. It's like we got to get rid of it sooner or later. And it was pretty close to the build rules as far as Tada's show there. And we just made it kind of flex some stuff here and there and made it work.
Right. Yeah, and that's going back to the experience being at multiple different shows and reading the rules is, there's a new style is not always a perfect car for every rule set, which we all know the rule sets change across the United States immensely. So knowing that you might need an old iron somewhere versus a new style, I mean, that comes along with the years put in, because you've seen it, you've watched it, and you've probably learned it the hard way.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
A time or two. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. It's exactly that. Like you said, the build depends so much on what you're taking where, even like beatdown for a while there, you basically couldn't tip a Ford. Well, that pretty much excluded new style Fords altogether, in my opinion, because that's a world of difference on them cars. I mean, it makes or breaks them. And for there, it was just in the first couple of years, it was a dominant old iron show. And then Caleb kind of flexed the rules a little bit, let us run some new styles. And I mean, they were up there in the top then after that, because they can compete. It just, they do need a little help on the rules, but just kind of some special areas, it seems like.
Right. Yeah. So were you the original starter of the Azzkikr name?
Yeah, that was back in grade school. Yeah, we were in, I think 7th grade is when we started it. It was me, Mikey, and Lucas were kind of the three guys that were derby. And, we were at a young age, like, let's figure out a cool name. And we really couldn't cuss back then. So it's like, let's be, AZZ. And we actually had shirts made that was, like I said, back in 7th grade. So probably like the early 2000s. And I remember wearing it to school, and I was like, oh no, we won't get in trouble because it's AZZ. No, I made it about, I don't know, down the hallway one time, and the superintendent came and got me, and he's like, you better go home and change. But no, it started way back then, and just kind of with us, and it just stuck. I mean, we carry that name still, and that's basically where it started from, was at a young age.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much a widely known team name now.
When we're down at Blizzard Bash and competing, it gets known pretty decent, I guess, there, yeah.
Yeah, I would say if you're anywhere and your guys' team name pops up, it's probably going to be on the list of who to watch for.
That's recognizable for sure, yeah.
I still think it's pretty cool. So this year at Black Hills, I wasn't there live, but I was watching on the TV, and whoever the 3 or 4 people doing the talking or announcing, every once in a while they'd bring up like a screen of who to watch for, and going into the feature, 3 of the 5 drivers who to watch for were from North Dakota. So still think that's pretty cool.
Really?
Yep. You, Larson, and Jacob Ettinger were the 3.
Okay.
I don't remember who the other 2 were. To me, they didn't matter as much because they weren't from our stomping grounds.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. That's awesome. Like, that really means a lot. We pour our heart and soul into it, and to get some recognition like that, like that's, we're it's awesome that we can run consistently like that. And I mean, there
Right.
too, though, it goes with putting the time in. We invest the time and the money, and we want to be at the top of this sport. We want our names to be known, and we want to
Right.
go there like even at Carnage here this year. I was talking with Brady because we had our leftover Blizzard Bash cars, and he was kind of on the fence whether we wanted to go or not because the cars were half used up, and it's like, do we want to go on that platform and take used cars there? Should we build fresh? And
Right.
like I told him, I'm like, I just want to see how we can compete on that level. You know, we ran Blizzard Bash as a team quite a few times, and that's a little different format and everything there when you got 4 guys you can depend on and out there
Right.
rather than like Carnage. It's more, granted, everyone's got their groups and run together, but it's like, let's see what we can do in that field. Because it was every single, like there was 30 drivers and any one of them could have won that show at Carnage. Like it was
Right.
top notch, best of the best. And, you know, we went down there and we didn't take the top spot like we were kind of hoping for, but we were up in the top 5. And it's like, that's pretty damn impressive with
Right.
the field that it's at. And same with Beatdown too. You know, they had, I don't remember what the final count was, but there's a ton of really good drivers across the country with top-notch builds and top-notch parts. So it's just every single derby we go to, like it's a challenge. Like you want to be there at the end. You want to win it for sure, but just to go there and make the feature and be in the top 10, it's a feat. It's a real challenging feat, and it's awesome when all the hard work and effort that you put into it, like you're able to turn a top 10 finish out of it.
Right. Yeah, I would say top 5, top 10, depending what show you're at. It's even local shows, if you can, even place in the top 3 to 5. I mean, that means something. There's a handful of younger guys now that I've been watching since we got all these shows this summer. I think I can think of 3 or 4 guys. I think we're gonna have some really good drivers here in the next 3 or 4 years. Not saying they're not good now. I mean, they're doing really well for their age, but they need a couple of years of that, driving experience and watching experience yet. But they're showing the right qualities to be in that spot, because fortunately, I mean, you guys probably do it a long time yet, but at someday you guys are going to be done, and from my perspective, I would like to see someone take over for you guys someday.
Exactly. Yep.
Keep kind of the North Dakota mentality going, that we have a strong suit of drivers here.
And I feel, I mean, North Dakota as a state, they got some of the best drivers in the country, really. Like I said, look at Shea and Duke. They've had a career of just kicking butt and winning a lot of big shows. You got the guys up north like Dustin Yanni. He's a prime name out there too. Carson Dixon, he's out there tearing it up on a lot of big shows. I mean, Mike Schmidt and Torrey Hyde, them guys are just, they're scary to be on the track with. They lay it down. And I mean, and Braden Larson, of course, he's a great driver. Brett Stringer, Tanner, I mean, there's just a handful. Jacob Ettinger. The list goes on and on. These are all guys that run on the national level and compete, and I mean, and win. So we, as a state, we definitely have a dominant group of drivers, and it is cool to see anyone from our state win. That year that Yanni and them guys won Blizzard Bash, it's like, it's cool just to know that you've been on the track with these guys and they won the biggest derby in the country. Like that is a feat. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's why I know we were out running in Minnesota 2 months, last month, whenever that was. And there was just some people asking about like shows around North Dakota. I always tell everybody, we might have in my opinion, some of the hardest shows to run at, because just all the names you said, not all of them at one time, but a good chunk of all of them show up at shows. You're almost running a top-notch show on a county fair level, but you got to run against all those guys that are running at a national level consistently. So not only is it building skills for everyone out there because you're running against the best, but it just makes it that much harder to get to the end at the end of the day.
Yep, for sure.
So it is fun to watch. It's a lot more stressful to tech and judge when.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, everyone.
You guys or everyone else that runs out of state, just because those are the people that are putting in the time to build differently.
Yep, no doubt. And like you touched there too, that it's awesome to see a younger group of drivers not only do good, but just to have drivers out there. It doesn't seem when I first started, there was, oh God, I bet there was 9 or 10 of us building cars at my parents' farm, just that buddies
Wow.
of mine that would run, and everybody just wanted to jump in a derby, you know, and now it just seems like that's not as common as it used to be. I think everybody has that mentality that you have to have a $50,000 setup to go out there and run and compete. And I mean, it helps, but there's different classes for everybody, and it just
Right.
doesn't seem like people want to put the work in anymore. So to see a group of people consistently run, that is awesome, and hopefully they do keep with it and keep progressing, and there too,
Right.
win some money here and there, and just keep putting it back into the sport. And
Right.
I mean, that's what it takes. You can buy the best parts in the world, but seat time, I mean, there's only one way to get that, and that's to be out there.
Yeah, I was the same way prior to the family and kid. It's, I was 6, 8 shows a summer. That's the only way you learn.
Yeah, for sure. It
Running
is.
consistently, ran almost the same build or same kind of car. So nowadays, old iron and or metrics are like my forte, because that's all I've
Yeah.
ever ran. I've ran like 2 Fords, and they're just not my thing, because I didn't have them available. Like you had Fords available. I had old iron and metric GMs just because of, I don't know, location. They were
Just,
available.
yeah, having them.
I mean, I
And
was
that
paying like cases of Cruise Light at that time for cars, or like
exactly. Yep, for
my,
sure.
my dad bladed the roads, and he knew the farmers, and he would just like, it was like a handshake deal for most everything I got
Yep.
at the beginning.
And that, like you said too, just what you're comfortable in. You know, there's been like when the caddy kick came along, and down at Blizzard Bash, all of a sudden them Cadillacs were just dominating. And
Right.
to me, it's like, number one, you got to pay so much for them, and then it's like, what does it take, 5 or 6 of them before you actually figure out what to do right there? And it was just like, I'd rather get them and trade them off, and get a bunch of Fords for them in return, rather than trying to invest in a different setup just for them cars, and then the knowledge that it takes to put into them. And honestly, that's the same with like the wagons and everything too. I mean, I've came across a couple of them, and I've sent them down the road right away. And like Beat down there, when they allowed Imperials, I had a few
Yep.
people ask me, like, build an Imperial? And I'm like, I don't know the first thing about building one of them. I'm not going to even waste my time on it.
Yep.
So I'll stick with something that's quick and agile, and hopefully I can stay out of the way of all the Imperials out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never strayed away, and that's what I always give these young guys advice is, if you're starting with a build, try to stick with that build, because if you're hopping all over the place from car to car to car, it's hard to learn the metrics of how it's going to bend and
Yep.
the shots to take. And I don't know, that's just what I've learned from over time. And I don't build the hardest cars either, but there's a lot of the time that they are there at the end, and it's just from time.
It is.
A
And
lot of
I mean,
time.
and a good example is like Bohr. Bohr's been building them old Fords for a long time. And I mean, he's got them figured out. Like, he's making them work, and he's winning money with them there. And that's
Right.
another car that, everyone and their brother was throwing them things away because it's just an old Ford junk. And he was getting them for cheap. And I mean, he figured it out, and he's got some pretty nice builds out of them too. So
Absolutely.
it is just what you stick with and what you make good. There's guys out there, like, look at Blizzard Bash. I mean, there's guys running new style metric GMs that are garbage cars. They're running them down there, and they're holding together. I've seen guys run them new style caddies too, and make them just wicked hard. And it's just figuring them out and running a couple and getting it down.
Yeah, can't remember. Was he on the national or the qualifying side? Because his was a metric caddy.
Yep, yeah, he was on the qualifying side there.
I mean, a nasty car like usual, but 2 years in a row he's ran a metric, and they've held up.
Exactly.
And rules they should, but
yeah, that's true. That's very true. They got a lot of lenience on the build there.
yeah. So I see you guys are running Gold Rush. Is that a thing, or is that still up in the air?
We got a spot for it, yeah. So we're gonna give that a try. We ran Blizzard Bash for quite a few years there, and it just kind of we've done quite a bit there and everything. And I don't know, we like running different shows. Like me and Brady have talked about, like, we want to go to Mayhem some year. We want to go to a Bash for Cash. Like, we want to hit up a bunch of different shows. And honestly, that Gold Rush, from what Sam told me about and everything, like, I feel that's the next big thing, really. Just the venue that they got is awesome. What they're doing kind of behind the scenes, there's a lot of cool stuff. A lot of respect for the drivers is what really caught our attention. Some of these shows, it's almost like they're looking for money more so than the show itself, and they forget what builds the show. You know, without the drivers and the cars, you know, the show doesn't happen. And even like around here, some of these shows, they just the smallest things, like Leeds, North Dakota. I remember when they had a derby, they would always drive around the pits and they'd give out like free pop, free Gatorade, free water, free beer to a limitation to the drivers and everything. And it's like that appreciation goes a long ways, you know, just that they actually had somebody giving out stuff like that means a lot. And just between that, or even, you know, like an event t-shirt, stuff like that, where to me, that's the things that I'll keep coming back to year after year. It's just the appreciation to the drivers is so important. And I feel that Sam is really pushing really hard for that. And he knows exactly the direction to pull that show. And, you know, he's been part of the biggest shows in the country. So he definitely has the knowledge there. And I really think you want to get on the ground level of that, because it's going to just keep growing and get bigger and bigger every year.
Absolutely. No, I like where you're touching on that, is kind of pleasing the drivers. That's something we finished with last year. We only did it once, but our plan is to do it every show this year. We plan to cook burgers and give out waters to all the drivers, actually everyone after the derby. For that, we say drivers, but the pitmen, the drivers, works. We did it in Washburn, but we did it last year in New Salem, and we got such good rapport from it. Everyone's like, that was awesome. Didn't have to worry about finding food afterwards, and have to go to the nearest cafe or
for sure.
You know, so we're like, screw it. If it costs us a few $100 to cook burgers for everybody, whatever. That's what it takes, you know. So we're gonna roll with it. People like it. We're trying to get venues to move to the no entry fee. You know, wherever we can save the drivers a little bit of money. And you guys are the ones coming, putting on the show. You got the gas, got the car expense, the works. So
no, and I think that's the stuff that people talk about. You know, when the derby's over, you'll talk about who won Mad Dog for a week or two, but every year coming up, it's going to be the little things like that. I feel that are going to be the big deal. You know, Jason Hyatt used to put on Botno, and his biggest thing was for the drivers, and he did. He followed through. He would get a bunch of sponsors rounded up, and every year we were there, every driver got entered into a raffle. And there was always a premium prize. Like, I think 1 or 2 years for sure, he had a turnkey built car that the guy that won, got to keep the whole setup, the car, the motor, trans, everything. The 1 year he had a full car hoist that he gave away. Every year though, he had, I bet, 20 to 30 door prizes, like tie rod setups, gas pedal setups, like all tranny coolers, stuff like that. And it was all, once you bought your entry fee, you were entered into that raffle. So you were damn near guaranteed to go home with. The 1 year I got a set of pedals, you know, so that's $400 or $500. The 1 year I got a set of rims, you know, we got a bunch of cool stuff just as raffle prizes. That's just for showing up. So stuff like that was huge in my opinion. And that just took a little bit from the promoter, get a sponsor to kick in here and there. And, you know, he had a great thing going there, but I think like every promoter, he had a handful of people complaining every single year, and the appreciation went out the window. And he just kind of said, you know what, it's not worth all my hard work and effort to try and build a big show. And that's what killed it. And that's the sad part, is a few people bitching and complaining enough, and it just takes the wind out of your sails, and he doesn't put that show on anymore. And it is sad. He was doing a damn good job, but that's just how it goes, unfortunately.
Yeah. We've learned to just, those people, whatever, you know, in one ear out the other, because most of the time the people that complain are the ones that don't show up.
Exactly. They're not the ones building cars anyway. They're the ones in the stands that had a few too many beers and just voicing their opinion. And that's what you got to do as a promoter, and even as a driver too. You know, there's a fair share of people that don't like my driving style either, and they complain about it and this and that. And, you know, it is what it is. I mean, I'm going to drive the way that I want, and until they start building my cars, I'm not going to change the way that I'm driving for them either, I guess. So,
right. Can you say, or maybe you don't want to, who's running with you guys down at Gold Rush?
We'll have to talk to Brady on that if we want to let the cat out of the bag yet for what our team is there. I don't know if we really want to get into that too deep. Just some, I wouldn't say maybe some hard feelings there with everything. So we'll probably keep that off the record for now anyway.
That's fine. I got a guess of maybe 3 of them. I just don't know number 4.
Okay, he's from out of state, I guess, so
Oh,
he'll
then
be
I
a great
wouldn't
addition
guess.
to the team and everything, but
Sure.
yeah, we'll just kind of keep that under wraps
That's
for now.
fine. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, no worries. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I know the three. I just the fourth one, but out of state, I probably wouldn't guess it anyways.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there's the teams for that are pretty stacked for sure.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, everybody, and with that, Sam invited, which
best
I
of the
think is
best.
pretty cool. Like he put together a list of 20 drivers that he knows are going to be there and put on a show. Whether it seems like I seen the list, and it seems like a handful of them are mad dogs that are going to be wild to watch, and there's some
Yep.
slow good drivers, and then there's some in between too. It seems like so, but like any big show, every single team they're going to have a shot at winning that. Every team's going to have a group of 4 great drivers, so it's going to be fun just to be on that level. We talked about Blizzard Bash bumping up to qualifying into nationals, and it's the rules are so wild and
Yeah.
just such a step up with the setups. We'd have to, I mean, like me and Brady, for instance, we probably have to throw 10 grand at our build, and I think that we have top notch builds the way it is, but you would just have to spend that on all the spindles and all that extra stuff that comes along with that national side. Where Gold Rush rules, they're still a heavier build in the limited class, but they're not quite as wild as like Blizzard Bash full mod there.
Sure. So going back to the team portion, you've been on a handful of different teams over the years, Shane Duke, yada yada. Silly Willie's been on your team. I mean, a whole bunch of different people. What do you kind of have a screening process, I guess you could call it, for who you're picking and choosing to be on the team?
I mean, I really haven't had that many different drivers. We started the first time we ran that team show was in Mandan, so it was me, Shay, and Duke, and then Andy Hansen, and that was just kind of our group. Us 4 ran together quite a bit around on single shows, and we worked well with each other. So that was the team. And then Andy kind of dropped out. We picked up Zach Fetro, which there too, he was just a great mix. We ran quite a few shows with him before, so he just blended right into like our team chemistry. Really, me and Zach went out to Utah a couple times and ran together and had really good luck out there. And
Sure.
Our driving styles meshed really well and seemed to work out good. Then yeah, we had Willie with that one year at Blizzard Bash, the first year, and we won it. He was just a wild child. He was a good friend of mine. We hung out a lot at the time, and he was just pumped about doing it. And we kind of talked, and it's like, okay, like he's going to build a good car and everything. And he definitely went wild out there for sure. And he was stacking stuff up, but it's like, calm down a little bit. We got to save some car for the future. And he was dozing, but I mean, it helped though. It seemed like everybody that he hit, he was damn near taken out too. So that worked out pretty well. And then I got on with me and Brady were talking for a couple of years before he got on the team there. As ironic as it was, the last year we ran Mandan, we drew Brady's team and ran against them. So like him and Troy and Brett, we ran against their team. So it really sucked. We kind of wanted to work together, especially in the feature, but it is what it is. We just talked about it, and like me and Brady ran a lot of shows together, and there too, we had good chemistry, and Brady and Brett ran a lot of shows together. They had good chemistry. And at that time we were just kind of looking through the list, and we kind of wanted to lean to have another hammer on the team. And we were going through just a list of people, and Tada won the singles class, the limited singles the year before that. And he could drive kind of both ways, aggressive and lay back a little bit. So we brought him on, and yeah, he definitely was the hammer there. He was laying it down, and he helped, especially in the heats a lot. He'd go out there and, I mean, he'd use his car up, but the more he'd use his car up, the more kind of me and Brady were able to save our cars for the feature too. He was taking people out, which took less stress on our cars, and that worked for quite a while as well. And it's kind of the screening process, I guess, is just, somebody that can finish a show, that can drive accordingly, I guess. If it's a fast pace, they can keep up. If it's slow pace, they can kind of keep at bay. And then just have a good setup. But really the biggest thing for us was always just the chemistry, people that we ran with, and we could, and on a team show atmosphere, it seems like you got to have people that are watching out for each other. When me and Brady hit the track, I pretty much know where he's at all the time, and he knows where I'm at all the time. There's been just countless times that I'm getting kind of piled up on it. Here comes Brady coming through at about 60 and just mops the floor with everybody, and vice versa. If Brady's getting kind of picked on pretty good, I can doze through and bail him out of there, and just we keep each other going, and it's constantly like I don't think we ever let each other get hung out to dry. I mean, that's even cost us a couple derbies where I came and got him out of trouble, and judges didn't like that too much. They kicked us both out. So we've been down that road too. But honestly, I mean, I do it over and over. And that show, I knew that he was going to kick us both out for team driving, but it's like, I ain't going to leave him hanging either. So it is what it is. That's a long time ago too.
Yeah. I was there for that. Actually, a couple of times. I think I remember it twice. Did it happen? Did it happen in Dickinson once? Or
yeah, that was with Shay and Duke though, when that happened. But another show where I got yelled at that I have to hit them guys, and then I go out there and hit the guys, and I get kicked out for hitting them. So kind of weird how that works, but
yeah. Well, it happens. I mean, there's two ways to look at it, from a driver's perspective and then like the judge / promoter perspective. I always tell everyone, I got to please the drivers, but I also got to please the spectators too, because spectators are paying the bill for you guys to drive, but you guys are putting on the show for the spectators to watch. So it's kind of a big rotating circle that you got to keep everyone happy. I mean, you're not always going to get everyone to be happy, but a good majority.
Try to do the exactly that, the best majority of it.
Yeah. I mean, when you guys came to New Salem, 3 years ago.
Yep.
I knew it was going to be a bloodbath. I knew who it was going to be a bloodbath between. Not that there was maybe hard feelings before. It's just how it works between two groups of drivers that are always consistently doing well. Knew how it was going to happen, and it's a super tough situation to be in, because it's what's going to happen. You just
and that's every promoter, every driver has their own version of team driving and everything.
Yep.
What I don't know, what kind of bugs me is when the promoter comes out there and says, hey, you have to hit this guy. We ran, I think that was Bowman. That was a couple years ago too. And it was like, I don't know, a minute into the feature, and they're screaming at me to hit Brady. And I'm like, I haven't even seen him yet. Like, you want me to drop around the whole track and run him down to find him to hit him? Like, that's kind of bogus. And then, every show you have groups of people running together. So some people do it a lot better than others. So it's wild how we're always the ones getting yelled at when, they brought 8 cars, we brought 3, and we're the guys team driving against their 8. That's kind of weird. But it just is what it is, I guess. And I mean, everybody, like I said, everybody sees it different. But to me, if you're not holding someone down and beating on them, like, you shouldn't have to go and find a specific car to go hit. Like my driving style when I was younger, it basically, I would pick one random car, and I would hit that car until he was done. Like, I wouldn't start a scruffle with anybody else. I would just after that one car until it was over. And that's just the way I drove. It wasn't picking on him. I wasn't going after just one guy or for personal reasons. It was just one random dude. It usually was whoever hit me first. I'm like, okay, well, I got your number now until you're done, or until one of us is done. Like, I'm going to go after you. That's just my strategy.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. We all know how it goes. It's just one of those things that's,
like you said, on a promoter side, like, you got to keep the crowd happy, and I'm sure it looks bad at times. And as a driver side, we kind of want to drive the way we want to drive too. So you got to keep a happy medium there.
Yep, exactly. So where to next? Do you know where you're going next, or?
Not sure. I know me and Brady both got car left from last weekend, so we're gonna try and find a set of rules that are relatively close. Whether we got to cut some off or add some, that build kind of we're not heavy enough to be a limited car really, and we're not light enough to be a chain car. So we got to kind of figure out where we want to go from there. But do a couple. It's gonna be more local shows. I know that, and kind of I wouldn't call it a cleanup show, but kind of take these cars there and get them used up a little more.
Were you allowed bumper brackets and things like that?
We had like a 10-inch bumper bracket up front, and then I ran stock brackets in the back. But I think that was like a 10-inch rule, a 10 or 14-inch rule as the back. So not terrible. And we had to stick with like the engine We really can only have a steel bell as far as the transmission, lower cradle on the engine. So, like I said, it's kind of more like a chain class build there. It's not the limited, not enough to run a limited class without the pressure and everything on the motor and that setup. But there too, like we had to have stock rear ends here too. So that's more, there again, back to kind of the chain style build. But
kind of caught right in the middle.
it is, yeah.
Yep.
And that's where, like, out in Montana, they're doing like a class 1, 2, 3, and 4. So they're kind of pioneered that too, to really initiate basically your 4 basic classes. It's not like, some places around here, somebody's chain class is like, well, you can do a lot for a chain class, or you can't hardly do anything for a chain class. There was, I think, Caleb's show, if I remember right, like you had to have a stock drive shaft. I don't even think you could have headers out the hood. So it's like, holy, that's a super light chain class. And like most shows around here, at least you can have like a slider or do motor swap, stuff like that. So it's every promoter just has their little bit of differences. And that's what sucks when we got a car like this, where you're right in between them. So it's like I said, you add a bunch to it to run a limited class, and like a lot of them, you pull the motor out and wrap it up in your cradle and stuff, and then stuff it back in again, or do you cut a bunch of stuff off and try and run a chain class with it? You're really in a tough spot. It would be nice to have a more unified set of rules statewide, where you can be like, oh, that's a class 3, so we're just going to take it. It's the same rules to every show.
Right. Yeah, it would be nice. Unfortunately, there's some promoters that want their touch on it.
It is. And, I've said that too, that what one promoter, you could have the same set of rules and 2 promoters could read them differently even too.
That too.
Where
100%.
if you're running with a group of just, 5 guys from over here, they're going to say this, and this is okay. But then you take that exact same car over there and it's like, well, no, that's not the way we read the rules, so that's the other part. I mean, you can't have the same promoters running every single show in the state. And so it's a tough situation to be in, really.
It is. It's even, say, Black Hills car shows up to one of our shows, which the rules are like down to the T identical except for one line item. And to be honest, he has like 8 guys looking at those cars. It's me and another guy. Not saying stuff gets missed, but we might read the rules differently on how he reads them, or we let something slide, he doesn't, or he lets something slide, we don't, and vice versa. So yeah, it's even just clarity. That's what I told Gumby, and was it Sam? Maybe it was Sam Williams. I was like, it's a long shot, but to have like some sort of unified, across the United States, even like some, what would you call it, like tech training. So like there's clarity on different rules. So if you do go to different shows, you kind of have the same perception of the line items in a sense, So, I mean, that's far off. That's like down the road, but it would be cool to have kind of like a NASCAR or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's a big thing, but it would be a step towards it.
I think so. And with that, I mean, you would think too, it would bring more exact same set of rules. Or I know it was talked about years ago to do like a national tour where, like you'd run all these bigger shows, kind of like what Sam's doing with that championship heat at Gold Rush, but you would get points for running Beatdown. You get points for running River City Rampage. You get points for running Wasatch Wipeout. Like you would get points at all these shows on a national level. And then at the end of the year, you would get some kickbacks, some money rewards or an engine or whatever have it. But it would get people to start traveling. And because Sam did do that. Now that I think about it some more, he had like a UD points circuit there, and it was like 5 or 6 shows. And I think they had one out in Colorado and a couple around Nebraska and Kansas area. And they traveled and they gave out some damn good prize money. It made it worth doing it. I think that's a good way to get these. I mean, the shows are pretty big the way it is, but to get a good constant following of everybody. And, North Dakota does, or they used to have that points series. And even as a little kid, that was always kind of my dream, was to run that. And we finally did. What was that? That was like 3 or 4 years ago as well. And it wasn't near what it used to be. I mean, it used to be, you'd have 50, 60 guys damn near every show running for it. And I mean, I think overall they had a good turnout for the shows that they did have, but it just wasn't the huge show that they used to have. And it was just cool to run that. And I mean, I ended up winning it. Brady ended up second. But just like I said, as a little kid, I've always wanted to run the full circuit, and we did. You know, we ran Tappan, a show that we usually don't run. We ran Linton. That was the first time I've ever ran there. Like center, actually, the majority of the shows I never ran them shows before, and I did it just because of that. I was in the points race, so I didn't want to miss any, and we built cars for them. So I think a lot of people would kind of, if you had, you know, a system like that nationwide, I think a lot of people would follow that series and build all winter and have fresh cars for them all. And you just have monster shows at every single one of them, great followings. And it would just be cool there again to compete on that level of just top-notch drivers across the country every single or every other weekend, whatever it would be.
Right. Yeah, we're hoping, you know, this is our first year starting the points back up in North Dakota. We're kind of hoping for the same thing because I had the same mentality. I won the points twice, you know, throughout my career, I guess. And same way when I was younger, you look at the points like, wow, you see those other guys winning it. You know, you go to the banquet after the whole year's over. It's like, wow, I want to be the guy with the big trophy, you know?
Exactly. Yep, for sure.
And, but yeah, we're giving away an engine and a car and all sorts of wheels and transmissions and things like that. So hopefully it's some sort of incentive for these guys to keep running. You know, it is kind of a extra reward at the end of the year if you put in the time.
It's something to build for, yeah. And I think, I mean, with everything too, it seems like that everybody wants to see how the first couple of years goes. Really, you know, you usually don't get the best following the first year because they just want to see like, how are the techs going to be? How are the shows going to be? You know, are they going to be consistent across everything? What are the rewards going to be at the end of the year? And people start seeing that they're giving away a turnkey engine. Like, whoa, that's worth running these 5-6 shows every year to try and get that, because that's a big money value, and that's something, you know, that's the heart of the car. That's a big part of Derbian is having a good, reliable engine.
Yeah, it's I think we've seen it in the past where some of the stuff maybe didn't follow through quite like, you know, it was maybe portrayed at the beginning of the year, and that's definitely our goal is everything will be followed through. Actually, we have everything ready to give out other than the engine, which is almost done too. It would be about a $4,000 355 that we give out. I mean, to a guy
that's a pretty damn good incentive to those few shows, you know.
Right. So I don't know. In my opinion, I would definitely gun for an engine, you know, because I've built all my own stuff, so I'm not the guy that's going to go spend a bunch of money on a engine.
Yeah,
some people do. I mean, I spend money on things, but not 15,000+ like a lot. Some people do. I've done well with what I've had, and I've never seen a need for that, I guess.
And that was my first, I guess I'd call it big motor. Like I've always ran same thing, rebuilt engines. I mean, kind of closer to a stock loose engine is what I was always rebuilding and running, not a whole lot of aftermarket parts. And it was, gosh, what year was that? It was about 4 years ago, I think it was now. I was down at Blizzard Bash and I was running my setup, and that was the first time it's like I'm getting outpowered. Like I was taking angles on cars and everything. And it's like, they had more horsepower than me and got out of the way of hits that like normally I could connect with. So I talked to an engine builder out of Fargo, and he's about 75, 76 years old, an old dude that just been around circle track racing, Derby his whole life. And, you know, I was kind of talking with him a little bit, and a good friend of mine, Mike Shield, is one actually introduced me. He got an engine built from him, and Mike did a whole bunch of research on, you know, what Baldwin's doing, what Collier's doing, what all these big builders are doing and why. And he went to our engine builder, and he's like, you know, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And he's like, I mean, if you want to waste 15 grand, yeah, we can do it that way. But if you want to go this way, we can do have the same results for about 4,000. And he's like, well, how can you do that? And he's like, well, I got this old laying out here, and I got this set of dart heads that they're used, but they're good, and we can machine that out and put on this intake. And it's like all this random stuff. And it's kind of, at first you're like, we're going to get the results out of this thing with all these used parts, but we did. And I mean, that engine that I got, I mean, I love it. Absolutely love it. It's more than I ever would have thought I'd have in a car. I mean, it's not Mike Schmidt loud by any means, but I don't think there is any engine out there that is as loud as his. But I mean, it works. It pulls the car just fine, and you know, it's gotten me where I need to be a lot. So
No, I remember you had a guy from Fargo build your engine, because when you were doing yours, we kind of messaged back and forth about it, and I built one at the same time.
yep.
So I just remember you had a guy from Fargo, and I ended up using a older gentleman, retired gentleman in Bismarck. Same
Oh,
thing.
okay.
Been around circle track his whole life. He's built a handful of derby engines, but nothing like super competitive. Just like, he's like, I built one for this guy like 10 years ago out of South Dakota. All I remember is his name was, or don't remember his name. He just called himself Big Daddy. I was like, okay,
Oh,
well, that makes
okay.
sense. But gotten to know him. Yeah, I didn't spend much money. Now I'm on my third engine from him, because everything has been, I mean, top notch from him, and I probably spend 1/16 of what most other
Exactly.
people are spending.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. I hear you there.
I've had zero issues, and got to stick with what works, and that's it's worked for me for quite a few years now, and probably wouldn't ever do anything different.
That's exactly where I'm at too, kind of with my whole setup, but just sticking with what works. You know, I finally got a full air style tranny cooler last year at Blizzard Bash. For the first time I ran a full fan engine or a tranny cooler, and it's like the ice chest worked for years and years and years for me, and it's like I don't want to switch from something that works fine, you know. And then finally it's just like, okay, it's time to upgrade the setup. So I upgraded a lot of stuff on it actually this year at Blizzard Bash. And I mean, I'm happy I did, but at the same time, it's like that stuff worked forever. And I was really nervous at Blizzard Bash, just like, gosh, you know, all this stuff that I got that I don't normally run, and it's proven to work, but at the same time, it's anytime you try something different, there's them jitters that it should work flawless, but there's just that chance that something goes wrong.
I know this was a long time ago. You and I talked. Did you ever end up tying your ice chest into your air tranny cooler?
I did actually. I got a different setup that it's set up where it comes out of the tranny, goes into an air style one, then into the ice chest, and then back to the transmission. So it's the best of both worlds, I guess, in my opinion there. So I still got to buy ice and bring that with, but yeah, most of the time, like the last couple of years before that, I would be running out of ice at the end, and it'd be hot water in there. And now it's a half hour, 45-minute feature, and I still have ice in the chest left, and everything's running nice and cool. So
yeah, it makes a big difference. I don't know. I ran ice chest for a long time, and I've also ran the fan style for a long time. I finally had a fan one give me problems out in Montana whenever Wheelie had that show a couple years ago.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, whatever. I mean, yeah, it was a long feature, but to me, it wasn't long enough to have issues. And my tranny cooler got so ungodly hot that the line started smoking. Then I knew the tranny was going to go. Then the fluid just too hot and everything else. It was like the cooler couldn't keep up, and I wasn't really driving that hard, so it shouldn't have been getting hot like that. That's one of those should have been back in the old, should have been running the ice chest, but tried to keep up with the new times, and it just didn't.
On that, everything. I mean, I was probably one of the last people around to run a cable shifter too. Like I had a rod through the floor at Blizzard Bash a long time. I had the stock steering column set up at Blizzard Bash for a long time. This last year was the first year that I didn't have a handful of people come up to me and be like, Jesus, Ponzer, your stuff is so underbuilt every year. Like, how do you get to the end? Like everything you got is just so old school and underbuilt. And it's like, I don't know. I just try and wheel it out to make it happen. And it was, like I said, my pedal setup, I ran the stock pedals for a long time until I switched over to a floor mounted setup, and the shifters and the steering column, just all that stuff, all the steering, the ball joints, tie rods, all that fancy stuff. Like I was running stock stuff for a long time before same thing there. It wasn't that I was afraid to get the setup set up for all the aftermarket stuff. I just it worked, so why change it? A couple people would always ask me like how I keep my steering straight and my A-arms and ball joints from breaking with the factory stuff, and I just tell them like, don't get hit in the wheels. That's all you got. That's the secret. Just don't get hit in the wheels, and that stuff won't bend.
100%. Well, I appreciate you hopping on. Is
Oh yeah,
awesome.
not a problem. I had a good time, and I follow all your podcasts, and it's an
Cool.
awesome thing you're doing there, trying to get some recognition for our state and just build the sport. And I think all
Yeah.
this stuff helps, just getting different drivers' views and promoters' views and parts vendors and everything. Like it's a good thing. Any form of broadcasting, it
Right.
moves our sport in the right direction. And I really think that between what Sam's doing there and some other promoters, like I think we could build this sport to the next level. Like we're right on the cusp of it, and it's just I think appreciating the drivers is a big step, and really just getting some big sponsors kicking in is a big step. I felt kind of before COVID, Stern Dirt had a lot of steam going with some big stuff, especially putting on that Vegas show, and then it just all got shut down with COVID, and it's hard to bounce back from that as a company and just as a support group. And I mean, it would be awesome to see a big money show out there, and just that to have a big venue where a great track and just get a lot of them big casino sponsors in there and could make it happen. It's a destination derby, and the fan support was huge there because you can fly out for Vegas super duper cheap,
Yeah.
and it was everybody wanted a derby on that venue or basically in that city. It's just that was one of the biggest things. We were gunning to get in there, and we got drawn in through that, and we had a laundry list of people that paid that, what was it, 25 or 50 bucks to be on the draw, even just to get a spot. And luckily we got a spot and got in, and we poured our heart and soul into that. We had a heck of a time because we ran Blizzard Bash the week before, and then we went clear across the country to Vegas. We were calling it November to Remember, and it sure as hell was to go down to Kansas and then straight across to Vegas. And and that was so fun to me to be on. Like we were on a derby tour. We went from Kansas all the way to Las Vegas in Derby. And in 2 weeks, we derbied at two major, huge shows, and it was just so awesome. And it's like, God, if we could do this every weekend, if we could get the support and a sponsor, this would be living the dream. But I think, we just got to move in the right steps with the sport and everything. And I mean, some shows we're definitely getting there. Some shows we're getting stepped back a little bit, but all in all, it takes the right sponsor, the right promoter to put some stuff together. And I think it's in the works. And I really hope that it can push for that. And, who knows where it could go.